common coding questions we get, and one of the probably main mistakes that we see when people are doing their bookkeeping is allocating expenses as either an expense or an asset. This is particularly common with computer equipment, office equipment, and motor vehicles. So each of those could be an asset or an expense, depending on what it is you're actually buying. So it's up to you how to set your policy to decide how you're going to treat things. At Pink Pig, we use a threshold of £100. So if something you've purchased is £100 or more, and it's something you're going to keep in the business for a long time, for example, a laptop, or some tools. So if you are buying a power tool, for example, an electric drill, that would be classed as an asset because it's over £100 and you're going to be keeping it for a long period of time, so over a year at least. So that would be classed as an asset. So it would need to be going to these fixed asset codes that we talked about back in the chart of accounts one. So it'd go to office equipment, computer, motor vehicles, or plant and machinery. This is really important as well for vehicles. So things like the actual car itself or any modifications, your charging point, if you've got an electric car, they would go to motor vehicles. Anything else, so tyres, placement, window screen wipers, replacement window screen, any like DVLA, tax, insurance, anything else would go to motor vehicle expenses because you're not keeping it long term. So even if it is over £100, then it's not an asset that you're keeping long term. It's an expense, part of the running costs of the car. So they would go to, and I've got to find it now, motor vehicle expenses. So it's the same with like laptops and things. Laptop, iPad, printer, all of that, if they're over £100, you would put them to computer equipment or whatever threshold you set. You're going to hold them for more than a year, and they're over £100 or whatever threshold you set, so they'd go to computer equipment. But things like laptop cover or keyboard or charging lead, mouse pad, all these type of things are more consumables. Print cartridges, for example, they're more consumables, so they're going to be things that they may last more than a year, but they're not going to be at that big cost. They're going to be more than likely cheaper, and they're more likely going to need replacing more regularly. So we'd put them into IT software and consumables rather than the asset. And this is really, really important when it comes to doing the accounts, because if they're classified in the wrong place, then your accountant will need to spend time changing them to where it should be. And it could be if you've put them to assets and you've registered them in the fixed asset register, which we'll come on to in another section, you'd have wasted time doing that if they should have actually been in the expense. And again, the accountant will need to unpick all of that. So it's really important to have a threshold and then stick to using that threshold when deciding where you're going to do it. So this is especially important when it comes to like construction people, construction workers, screwdrivers, things that you're going to go through pretty quickly. Even if they cost you a bit more than the £100 threshold or whatever threshold you set, because you're going to go through them, you're going to be replacing them quite regularly. They'd either go into your direct expenses if they're related directly to your job. So, for example, a builder, that would probably put them in direct expenses because you're going to be using them to do your service. However, if it's not necessarily related directly to doing your job, maybe it's you're in a factory and part of the factory you need tools just to make things, then you may want to just set up a no code in expenses for small tools. So it's really important to make sure they go to the small tools and not into the fixed asset, because you don't want that fixed asset overstated, but you also don't want to not have things in expenses that should be because they Well, it all reduces your profit, but in different ways. So you want to make sure that they're classified correctly. So yeah, one thing to do there is set yourself a threshold for the policy and make sure you communicate that with your team, and then continually make sure that you are classifying things in the right way.